updated as needed. A public hearing on the proposal is scheduled for January 16th at 1:30. Is that still on? And so you can talk more about that and more information if you want. All right, so I'm going to introduce Natalie. So we're very pleased to have Natalie with us tonight, and she could join us to present the proposal. Natalie was elected to the Montgomery County Council in 2022 from District 6. For those of you who don't know where that is, probably most of you, that's Wheaton, Glenmont, and Aspen Hill area. For 7 years before joining the council and until August 2021, Natalie was vice chair of the Montgomery County Planning Board. Before that, she was a lobbyist at Casa de Maryland, the largest Latino and immigrant organization in the state, and she worked at the SEIU, Service Employee International Union, and founded her own public relations firm. Natalie is widely recognized over these decades of her leadership in the county as an advocate, a strong advocate for economic justice, civil rights, immigration reform, and improved access to health care. Most recently, she took the lead on getting an important rent stabilization bill passed just this past July. On the council, importantly, Natalie chairs the Economic Development Committee and is a member of the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. So Natalie, the forum is yours for now.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. I love coming to the AgriServe, and something that it was not on my bio is that both of my parents grew up in farms in South America. I'm the only immigrant on the county council, so I grew up thinking that nature and the agriculture is something that we need to embrace and learn from, and it's something that I carry with me, and I teach my kids to do the same thing. I have 2 children in Montgomery County Public Schools, they're in elementary schools, and we spend a lot of time in the agricultural reserve. When I was on the planning board, as it was mentioned, for 7 years, I worked on the agrotourism study that was approved, I don't know, like 5 years ago at this point, and in many master plans across the county. So land use and economic developments are issues that I'm very passionate about. So this ZTA, which means zoning text amendment, is actually to enhance the AgriServe. And it's not gonna be perfect, especially for somebody with my background. I understand that in order for policy to pass, we need to have the community involved and the voices to be involved so it can be the best way it can be. Okay, so that's my commitment, not because I'm just saying this, but because of my background and what the things that I have accomplished. As it was also mentioned, the rent stabilization bill that we just passed in July, that was my bill. The most controversial and most significant bill in recent history for Montgomery County. Okay, it passed with a 7-11 vote. And I'm very proud of it. It reached a compromise. And I share that with you just because it's important. I'm not somebody who just woke up one day and say, I'm gonna do this. I woke up thinking I have done so much work in the agricultural reserve with my background on the planning board, and I really want to make sure, especially as chair of the Economic Development Committee for the County Council, anything that deals with agrotourism falls into my committee. It's my duty to ensure that this area thrives. And it's not gonna happen if you guys are not involved, okay? So I really welcomed the invitation from my friend Carolyn Taylor when she said, Natalie, you gotta come to the AgriServe and have this meeting. And I said, of course, that's part of the whole process. When I passed rent stabilization, do you know how many meetings I had with community members? Lots of them, okay? Throughout the whole county. So I drafted the bill, very technical, with advice from different folks that deal with the planning department, the county council, looking at what's happening in other parts of the county, in Howard County, Prince George's County, where this is already allowed. So looking at those models, I drafted this one, just a draft for people to see, and then we can, talk about it and see what things need to change to make it great. Okay? So see it as the basis. Don't see it as, this is it, nothing is gonna change. No, that's not how policy works. I was a lobbyist for the Maryland Dream Act. That was my first job out of college. The Maryland Dream Act, do you know what that is? Yeah, it's the legislation that allows undocumented kids to pay in-state tuition. I was 20 years old, and I was the main lobbyist for that bill in Annapolis. This is not new to me, okay? But I'm the type of person that I love a challenge. It just gives me, I don't know, it gets me excited. And I want to make sure that we do the right thing here, and that's why your voice is so important. Farms is not just for the App County. This is something that you probably don't have the update, but I want to make sure that in my district, which it's anything between Forest Lake and Aspen Hill, including Rockville, Kent Mill, Pastor North, Bethesda, Bethesda has also access to urban farming. You know, those are things that I really care about because kids need to know where food comes from, healthy food. Okay, so I need you to understand that about me because you guys don't know me. Although I have been working on this for so long, you have no idea who I am. You're probably thinking, who's this crazy woman who wants to take over? Far from the truth, okay? So let's have this as a conversation to see how we can, you know, make sure that we have a great piece of legislation that will benefit you, okay? This is about us working together and pushing for economic development, okay? And I know change is difficult. Again, I come from the planning board. I have thick skin, and I know how hard it is for people to see that, you know, our society evolves. But the one thing that I'm gonna ask you, just to please keep an open mind. This is also about the future generations and to ensure that we have access and people can enjoy what we have in Montgomery County, which is beautiful. This is the place that I call home, and I wouldn't live anywhere else. Okay, I did go to California over the summer, and I went to the wineries, and I was jealous because I got to sleep there and have wine. I want the same thing here, and so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the challenges and see how we can, you know, do something that really works for everybody. And we do have farms here, people that I have spoke to that they want this. But policy is not about making sure that 1 or 2 or 3 properties get whatever they want. It's about making sure that it's done in a responsible manner, okay, to uplift everybody. So with that, I can, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to?
I'll take over.
Oh, well, very quickly. So you said that the public hearing is going to be on January 16, and then it's going to come to the PHP committee. PHP is the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. I am a member of that committee. So each council member is a member of 2 committees. I'm the chair of Economic Development and a member of the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. The chair of that committee is Andrew Fritzen, and the other 2 members are myself and Bojan Wando. And it's going to be in that committee at the end of January. So.
Great.
I'm going to move my chair this way so I can see people.
Would it be
Excellent.
helpful to review the text amendment?
Yes.
Just, you want to read it again?
Okay, let me tell you what's going to happen now. So Natalie is available to answer questions. You can direct your questions directly to her through us. You can also just comment. Any comments are welcome. They don't have to be questions for Natalie. You could make a statement, although let's not pontificate too long. Please keep them short if you have comments, and we'll start a dialogue. And you can talk to each other. It's an open forum discussion. Although I would say this first part, if there's things that you would like Natalie to clarify, then this is the time to do it the next 10-15 minutes. She won't sit up here and answer all the time because some of you might just want to make a comment. But that's the way it'll sort of work, sort of open forum discussion. Again, respectful and civil, please. And anything is open. Some of you in this audience probably don't know much about the ZTA, per what you just said. So if Natalie wants to clarify that, we could start with that. Just some of what's going to be in. No, it was right here. It's right here.
So basically, in Montgomery County, you're not allowed to have let's say, a cabin or a yurt. Have you been in Little Bennett? Anybody? Little Bennett Park? Okay, so if you go to Little Bennett, you see that we have cabins there. Again, I was on the planning board from Little Bennett. You have the jerks too, that you can spend overnight, but that's a government site. So we can have liberty to do a lot of stuff that the private sector cannot do. So basically what you see in Little Bennett, that's what I'm saying that we should allow properties to have with certain limitations, it's not, so, and like I said before, the ZTA is very basic, and there are some things like, for example, I don't have, and this is a good conversation to have today if possible, there is no limit in terms of how big your property has to be to qualify. We can talk about that. There are some places across the nation, including Maryland, where there are limitations, like say, I'm just giving you a random example, I would love to hear your feedback, okay? Because it's not there yet. Let's say that you should not be allowed to have cabins, let's just say cabins, just to put a name to the structure, if it's less than, I don't know, 5 acres, random number, okay? Maybe it shouldn't be, we don't have a size on the structure yet. I would love to hear your feedback in terms of the size. Maybe it shouldn't be more than, I don't know, 700 square feet, random number. I'm looking for your feedback. Those details are not there, but I would love to hear your feedback before we go into committee session at the end of January. Okay, those are 2 points. So that how big the property is to allow this, that's one, and how big the cabins should be. The ones in Little Bennett, I don't think did we find out that the size, they're like about 300 square feet, no more than 400 square feet, okay, for those ones. And the ZTA does say that it shouldn't be more than 10 structures per property. Yeah, with 2 adults and whatever, how many children you have. Usually it's like 2 and 2 nowadays. So those are the limitations. In many places they do have, they're more generous. I am not that generous, so you know. What else can I say? It could be.
Go on to more questions if we want.
Yeah, what questions do you have? Oh, the issue, let me just take care of that right now. Some properties have easements, right, on their land. So basically, if you have an easement, then you need to, that's basically an agreement that you have with the county, right? So in those cases, you're gonna have to, we're not saying no, you're gonna have to review that easement with the county to see if you're allowed. If you don't have an easement, right, you will be allowed to have this if you fit certain criteria like, you know, the size, you know, no more than 10. Then we need to discuss about how big the property can be or how small, I should say, I should switch it. Like it shouldn't be more than, I'm just saying 5 acres just to put it in. What else? Those are like the basic things right now. I would love to hear your comments, especially on these issues that I just talked about that are really the most important ones. I still like
Tom, we'll moderate and you can.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move my chair here.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
if I might just say before we start, for those of you who haven't seen the language of the ZTA, it is linked on both Sugarloaf's page and MCA's page or post on this. If it's of interest as we evolve in the conversation, I have it up and can make reference to it if there are specific questions. Okay. So, who are we going to first?
Tom, first, right here.
Okay.
Hi, Tom Hoffman. I live in the Ag Reserve part of Clarksburg. Before we get into the kind of detailed questions you prompted with size and so forth, a fundamental starter question. What problem are you trying to solve?
I don't see it as what problem I'm trying to solve. I'm seeing it as how can we increase economic opportunities for this part of the county. So it's not a problem. It's basically a hope to ensure that this community thrives and evolves. Because this is happening across the nation already. It's gonna happen at some point, whether you like it or not. I'm just telling you, it is going to happen. I'm just taking that step now.
What's gonna happen?
Having the overnight stays. That was a question, right?
Well, no, the question was about, you introduced the topic with an economic development perspective.
Yes.
So I wondered challenge, barrier, deficiency, I use the word problem, any of the above, you're addressing? What is the economic development need that you see?
Well, agritourism is a big deal in the state. And we want to make sure that Montgomery County is ahead of many places across this region in particular. Making sure that more businesses, more people visit our restaurants, making sure that more people visit land or areas is really important for us. And so it's in that flag that I tell you that it's important to ensure that that Montgomery County is competitive, and this is a way to do so. So, and this is nothing new. You can even, we can talk to we had a meeting recently in Poolsville, where the state secretary for commerce came in, completely embracing this idea. Montgomery County and Maryland has to be competitive, and agritourism is here to stay, and this is part of that umbrella. So,
Okay, let's move on to another question. Right here.
I find that, you know, for years, Montgomery County has been ahead of with the ag reserve, preserving the farmland, and so that we can feed our population. So the idea of putting cabins on these one-night stand kind of or overnight, it just seems contradictory to our objective has been in the past. And I don't see an economic benefit of having cabins when we're giving up all the land. I mean, does that make sense to you, Helen?
yes, because basically, one of the strengths that we have as a county is having a protected agricultural reserve, as you mentioned, and making sure that we have more density down county. Okay, we want to grow, vegetables and food in the ag reserve, but also we also have wineries and we have breweries, and we want to make sure people experience being in the ag reserve as much as possible. All I'm saying is that if you have a property, and we can talk about the limitations, you as a guest, being somebody coming from outside Maryland, somebody coming from down county, somebody coming from Silver Spring or Wheaton, spending 2 days, that it should be allowed if the property owner wants it. It's not that the government is telling you, you need to do this. It's only if you own land and you feel that you want to do this, you should be allowed to, just like it's happening in Howard County, Prince George's County, many places in Virginia, lots of places in the nation. We are giving you should have the right to do with your property what you want to ensure that you enhance, whatever you're doing. Like if you want a winery and I want to spend the night sleeping there for 2 days, we should do it. I actually put in the ZTA that it should be no more than 4 days to stay. Howard County,
It says 14.
No
That's
talking,
4
no
days.
talking.
It
Put
says
your
4
hand up.
days. It says 4 days. I agree.
How's that gonna be enforced?
Okay, let's let her finish and then we'll ask this question.
Yeah, because otherwise it's not gonna be.
Yeah.
So in
This is
places,
wrong. I'm sorry, it's just really not where we, as a country, where we should be going. I mean, it's putting temporary housing in our farmland. It feels so wrong to me, and honestly,
Thank you so much for sharing that, and Natalie, we're gonna move on to the next question now.
can I just quickly respond?
course.
This is not housing. This is overnight stays. There's a big difference. This is not somebody.
it's worse.
It's not a kitchen. It's somebody who's gonna experience what you have in your property if you choose to, and it's already happening. This is nothing new. We're not doing, and in other places in the region, the limit is 14 days. I'm just saying 4. So, okay, go ahead.
So, let's give a Tina Brown, who, just as a point of information, the beautiful map of the agricultural reserve, this is your artist right here.
Well, my husband and I have only lived, Tina Brown, my husband and I have lived in Martinsville for the last 25 years. And we moved up here after I worked on 2 books with Melanie Chubis Bradley for Sugarloaf Mountain. So coming from Somerset, I was drawn to this area. And now I'm on the Countryside Artisan Studio tour up here. It's a wonderful tour through the countryside. And I just had it last weekend along with other artists who are on the tour. And one of the things I hear over and over and over, I just had someone Sunday telling me, my nephew came from Ontario. They drove down and went all the way to the Rockies and said the Ag Reserve was where we live is their favorite place because you don't have all the development. You just really get to relax and enjoy the space. So what I want to tell you is one of the things that's unique about Montgomery County that doesn't exist in Carroll County, Howard County, or Prince George's County, or anywhere else in the country, is we have 93,000 acres of contiguous farmland that's protected.
Right.
And we have friends from Frederick County here tonight, who I've been working with to try and protect Sugarloaf Mountain from development. What's happening there and what's happening here are people always come in with a development prospect. You don't represent our district, so you might not be familiar with our history here.
Oh, I know, I was on the planning board.
I know,
Yeah.
but we've seen a lot of planning boards and we've seen a lot of proposals. We've had a mega church for the size of the National Convention Center. We've had a lot of people wanting to come in and propose new ideas. So what I'm asking is if our agriculture reserve is unique for Montgomery County because it's a national model for farmland preservation, why introduce a zoning text amendment to redefine what farming is in the agricultural reserve, to include overnight lodging? The question I have is there's a part of the county code, I think it's chapter 54, that has transient lodging. Why not work on that instead of coming into our farming definition that has, I mean, this has been crafted and held together for almost 45 years.
Great question. Answering very quickly. Last year, in the General Assembly, the State Maryland Assembly, that's Annapolis, they passed a law that would change the definition in the agritourism section to include overnight stays. This is a state law since last year, so we're not changing anything.
State law, not Montgomery County.
The state law oversees Montgomery County.
But
State.
Montgomery County doesn't have every provision that's in the state law for agritourism.
So the overnight stay is already a reality, thanks to the state law. All I'm doing is creating a zoning text amendment to allow the overnight stay. But the definition is already done. I had nothing to do with it. It was done last year. So the overnight stay is to make sure it's allowed in the agricultural reserve. And again, it has limitation. If you're a property owner, you don't wanna do this, you don't have to. But if you have a business and it will benefit you, it will bring more economic development for your business, you will have decided to do it, then why not? It's
Because maybe we don't want a tent city next to our property, or a shanty town, and we're unenforceable regulations.
we're not, this is no housing, these are
There's no way
cabins.
to enforce it.
You got a hand over here, this was up a long time ago,
Yeah,
instead
let's
of
let,
people jumping in.
thank you.
Let's
let
Ellen
Board
next,
go.
and then we'll go back over here. Ellen?
Mine is a follow-on to Tina's. I mean, we do allow bed and breakfasts that are limited use. And I don't know if we have any, I don't know if that's proved beneficial to farms, but have you looked at it, done an
Oh,
analysis?
yes.
Is that something that can be changed so you're not moving into defining agriculture?
The definition is already done, it's by the state.
So the definition of the state local incidental outdoor stays, unless you can show me the legislative background, I don't. It looks like they're talking about tents and RVs, not permanent structures.
Bed and breakfast are already allowed in the ag reserve.
Right, so is
It's
it
already-
working? Are we using it?
Nobody's using it,
Yes,
because
they are.
nowadays,
Well, why not start with that and find out why it's not working, or talk to the farmers and find out why they haven't taken advantage of it?
I did, believe it or not.
We
And,
have some farmers here who maybe comment on that.
and what I have heard from folks is that they want a separate, bed and breakfast, you have to have it next to, let's say you have a home, and you have to have a bed and breakfast connected to your home. People want things separate, have more of, I would say, independent living for a few days, in this case, 4 days. So that's a different, that's already allowed, and people are not doing it.
Okay, questions
So,
over here?
totally
Questions back-
different issue.
Thing over here? Yes,
Dick?
Dick, yeah.
just a resident of a relatively small farm since 1974. And my question is about pollution. One of the things that the ag zone accomplishes is environmental benefits. And Montgomery County has done from an air quality standpoint for ozone, non-attainment ever since I've been here. How is this going to impact the air quality of our region? Or is it improved? Is it make it worse? What's the impact of this?
That's a great question, because I do take pride of being an environmentalist, and I don't think that there's a lot of people who can match my record on that front. I would say if you have somebody visiting from, let's just say West Virginia, and they're driving here, and they wanna spend the night. Oh, you do, I do need the mic. Hello, can you hear me now? I'm sorry, guys. If they wanna come to Montgomery County to the ag reserve for 2 days, making one trip and sleeping overnight, I think that's better for the environment. Because it will reduce the trips that they're making in their car. So if I see it that way, I think it's the environmental way. You know, and again, these are not houses, these are not homes. These are structures that could be temporary. They could be, you know, the jerks that we have in Little Bennett, or they could be permanent depending on the situation, on the property. Not every single property, especially if they have an easement, will have the same constraints. So it depends. Is it environmental? I will say yes. If you reduce the amount of trips, it's a great thing.
Another question? Questions over here, back there? Go ahead.
I am Greg Glenn, Rockland Inspired, and this is also the need for Caroline. But how might this impact the current septic restrictions
Yes.
for ag units,
Yeah.
especially in relation to what's already being added on accessory uses to farming?
So that's a good question, and one that we've been trying to look into in terms of what the provisions of this ZTA would allow. As we understand it, as Natalie just referenced, whether it's tent or yurt or constructed unit, there's no limitation on having, there could be bathroom facilities, full bathroom facilities in these constructed units. The well and septic office would have to be part of the permitting process. They would have to determine whether their percolation would support that constructed unit. As to well capabilities in terms of the amount of water needed for 10 units on a farm, that actually falls in the state purview in terms of water withdrawal. But those are issues, Natalie, that have been raised by people. We have areas, especially in the crystalline geology of the reserve, this is how our water comes from the ground, where those wells bring in maybe a gallon or 2 gallons per minute. I mean, they're very low amounts of water. So additional water withdrawal consumers has been a concern of folks. I think that the one thing I wanted to say also is that we were referring in the ZTA to this as incidental outdoor stays. I think it's been raised a number of times both here and elsewhere that these are contemplated constructed units, are really not outdoor stays. These are constructed, for lack of a better word, motel rooms. Well, yeah, they're air conditioned and heated, and they have bathrooms. It's kind of like a motel room. And so that raises a whole host of questions that people may have here. So we're not necessarily talking about tents. We're talking about something. And the ZTA, by the way, if you pull it up, I saw that the language had changed most recently, that originally it was struck through the area that talked about the limits of size of buildings that are associated with agritourism. It could only be 50% of the structures on the farm. Now then, that has not been struck through, but there's an additional set of sentences that says that that limitation would not apply to the overnight facility. So currently, at least, there is no limitation to the size of the facilities.
That's why I brought it up at the beginning.
Right. So I'm sorry for the length of that, but any other questions?
Natalie, do you want to?
Or do you want to?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
So yes, everything has to be approved by DPS. So again, you have a property, it's not whatever you want. There are certain limitations that you have to apply based on your property. If it has an easement, how big it is, and that's the question I wanted to really get into here in terms of discussions or ideas. To do that in septic is key, sewer and septic, so water and sewer. So it really depends on the property. And somebody in another meeting, they raised, the state is allowing compost toilets. So again, it's really based on your property. Maybe you wanna have something that is very simple, extremely simple, to have overnight stays, and maybe you have a property that you wanna be more, luxurious, so just you said a motel room, whatever, depends on your property, and it's not whatever you want. There are gonna be parameters, and you gotta go through DPS to ensure that you have the capacity, you're allowed to do such thing. So the ZTA opens the door for people to consider having these overnight stays in their properties based on, the situation of the properties.
Ms. Langstaff, I think you had your hand up for a while.
Hi, I'm Lee Langstaff, I'm the Comus farm there, and I'm with MCA as well. So you keep talking about people being able to come to this beautiful place. And one of the issues that I have, and I've talked to other people about, is do people realize what makes this place beautiful and special? And do you come out here and you do something that actually detracts from what makes it special? And one of the main things that makes it special, which is also visually pleasing and makes it a nice place to drive through, I get that, is that you can experience and witness real agriculture happening.
Yes.
Real farming is happening here. There are real farming businesses here. And it's been the policy for 30 plus years to ensure that that is enabled and supported and protected. Yes. That opportunity to stay actually doing real agriculture here in the reserve. That's the whole point. And we promised that to our farmers who may have sold their development rights over the years, et cetera, et cetera. So that this sounds like development to me. So I don't know quite how you work that out. That's an issue that is in my mind. I don't see anywhere in the ZTA a requirement that says these places actually have to be doing agriculture. Not just having a cow and a goat and a buck and some chickens, and chickens that people can come and look at, but that it's actually an agricultural business. We require some degree of this for the wineries and for the breweries, et cetera, et cetera. They need to be actually a working farm, right? So having somebody, if somebody comes and buys a farm and says, oh, well, I don't want a farm, but maybe people would like to come to be here because it looks like a nice farm environment, is not an appropriate or fitting development use of these properties. I want to just note that not all of the easements that are on these properties are county easements, okay? And the idea of going and renegotiating an easement that people, maybe there's a lot of money invested and a lot of promises made when those easements take place. And the idea that this opens the door to negotiating away some of those easements makes me really nervous, really nervous. And then I have one other question, which is, if somebody does this and they have 10 of these units, and there's a couple people, you've got 20 people staying there for 4 or 5 nights, how are they being fed? What, if these are overnight stays, and they're not allowed to have cooking facilities, how do they, have we thought about the implications of the fact that these people need to eat and to be fed? Are they bringing their own food? They're not allowed to cook it, according to the cooking. So these are just some questions that are on my mind that are the bigger picture. Thank you.
I thought those were great questions, and those are the issues that I also thought about. And I would say, number one, this is not for every single farm. Okay, if you want to have cabins in your farm, you gotta have a marketing strategy, a reason why you think people want to be in your farm for 2-3 days. Nobody wants to go somewhere that doesn't have anything to like admire or feel connected to. If you're going to a place to spend the night, or 2, 3 days, up to 4 days, it has to be a reason. Could be a winery that has a restaurant, you know, something that will make you want to be there. Otherwise, the business will fail. It will fail. Nobody will want to do that. Who will want to do such thing? No one. So that's the answer for that one, believe it or not. And then you asked something else at the beginning. That was the last question you had about, you know, the food, who's gonna be eating where. You know, whoever wants to do this in the property.
They're gonna have to provide a restaurant?
No, they have to think about all those details. It depends on the location, if it's nearby a place where there's, you know, a brewery, a restaurant, or whatever. It depends on the location, it depends on who. But then that's the problem for the property owner who wants to do this. All I'm saying is that we're gonna allow through a ZTA, if you have a property, I'll listen to you. All I'm saying is that you're gonna be allowed, just like many places across the nation, to do an overnight stay if you think that's something that you want to pursue based on your property, based on your business model, based on whatever you're doing in your property. That's all we're saying here. Nobody's obligating anyone to do anything on the property.
Go on, some more questions?
This gentleman has had his hand up for a while here.
Regarding the easements, how do you reconcile from a county standpoint that if somebody a generation ago or whatever, in exchange for an easement got millions of dollars, and how do you reconcile from a county standpoint of undoing that and allowing structures that the original recipient of those millions of dollars agreed to not have any structures and leave it the way that it is?
It depends. I would say it's a case-by-case scenario. It depends. It has to be, it's not like you wake up one day and you're gonna say, I have an easement in my property, I'm gonna make a change. It's not that easy. It's a complicated process. If you end up being successful, it's not a guarantee. This just allows to have the possibility of doing such thing if it makes sense. Okay? That's all it does. Nobody's pushing you to anything, and it takes two to tango.
Yeah, I'm sorry, one second.
Yeah, it seems to be a lot of holes in the CTA. A lot of things that weren't thought about more thoroughly to address the issues that we have here in the Ag Reserve, and that's why you're hearing a lot of these comments today. I feel personally this is premature, and I also feel that years ago, in recent years, a whole revision was done to the zoning in the county, and I think one of the reasons this was done was to prevent all these ZTAs from coming up all the time. I mean, this happens frequently out here in the Ag Reserve. And I think what you're hearing tonight is a lot of frustration from people. We keep fighting these battles. We don't feel heard.
The signs, I completely agree with you. And we actually, that meeting that we had was the Western Economy Forum that we had in Poolsville, and the whole issue of the signs was brought up, and we talked about it with the state, and hopefully there's gonna be movement on this, because that's different from the ZTA, but I'm 100% with you. And it's not just in the Ag Reserve, many places across the county where we like the signs on the roads and the highway to indicate what places are.
More questions?
Yes, we had, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm David Scott. I'm a farmer in right around the corner.
Can everyone hear Dave?
Yeah.
Speak up, Dave.
Hey. So just to add to what Lee was saying, my parents put our farm in easement 30 years ago, and it was with the thought, and a lot of our other neighbors did that too, to keep the land open. And like she said, 90,000 acres, the biggest ag reserve in the country, and that's why we're not like any of the other counties, PG or like that you were mentioning. We're not like them at all, and that's why it was created, and that's why Royce Hansen, he's the man that started all this, and that's why it was started, to keep open space, and then to have all these other people wanting to come out and buy properties and like you're saying, build cabins. It wasn't the original intention of that. That's what, and that's why I'm here. It was,
Thank you, David. Now, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. I think you can tell that people here are very protective of the Ag Reserve, and many in this room have been here for 20 and 30 years and gone through fights just about every year or every other year. And so we know what this is like. And I know that I applaud your interest in agritourism, but you don't represent this district. And it would have been wiser to have a stakeholder group in advance of drafting a bill. And I know that your chief of staff, who used to work for Hans Riemer, knows that we fight because they were the masterminds behind the solar industrial solar in the Ag Reserve. And so it would have been wise to have a stakeholder meeting in advance of drafting. That's number one. Number two, some of us remember back in the mid-90s when a zoning text amendment or a special exception was approved by the council to allow golf courses. Within the space of 6 months, 11 golf courses were proposed. And the council wisely saw that this would become the golf reserve, and they shut the door on that. Our concern is, and I spoke to Royce Hanson this week, who said the bottom line is this is like creating motels in the Ag Reserve. Yes. And if people want housing, they can't make it back to Bethesda, which takes me about a half an hour. If they want overnight stays, there are Airbnbs. There should be more B&Bs and perhaps inns in villages instead of putting them on farmland. And so I would finally want to say, yes, one thing I learned from Royce is that the Ag Reserve is used in textbooks across the country as the best model of farmland preservation. We're not like Howard, we're not like Prince George's, so don't compare us to them.
Why not?
Actually know Royce very well. He used to be the chair of the planning board where I served. And I'm very proud of the Ag Reserve, but and I wasn't comparing with Howard County, I'm just telling you what's happening over there. And I rather much better live in Montgomery County than in those places. I'm just telling you that we are evolving and we need to adapt. That's all I was saying. On the work group before having the ZTA, look, I have done bills and policy for many years. And in my view, I think it's more productive when you start with a technical draft, which is what I did, and then run it with the community, which is what we're doing today. Okay? Getting your feedback. What else can I say?
Next question. Further questions?
Okay, Mr. Sinky, then you may have to walk this way if you want to come to me.
I just wanted to say that your premise is based on the need to bring people out to the agricultural reserves. Urbana has overnight hotels and restaurants, the whole thing. That's 15 minutes in here. Germantown has hotels and restaurants. That's also 15 minutes in here. So there's very easy access to overnight stays and restaurants and facilities without bringing those facilities and hotels into the Ag Reserve. Okay.
Thank you. Lauren, can you talk really loud?
I'll try to talk loudly, thank you. I guess I want to...
Can you hear her? I will. All right, come here.
Sorry, Lauren.
Get over here.
Here you go.
Walk right at you. I want to reiterate, I guess, some of the things other people have said, but step back from what you said when you first came in. You wanted to talk about how many days, how many people, how big it should be. I think that's not the question we should be asking here. The question we should be asking is, do we want to change the zoning of an area that is zoned for agriculture and make a permitted use of this area also overnight lodging? That's a whole different thing than agriculture. So this is zoned for agriculture, and you said people should have the right to put housing on their places if they want to. People should not have that right. This is zoned for agriculture. We bought our property to be farmers, to farm here. There are people here who are not farmers, who are in homes that near farms, but the biggest portion of the land here is farms. And if those farms start to have overnight stays, motel, I don't know what to call them. Places, cabins,
Commercial
places-
lodging? Can we call it commercial
okay,
lodging?
commercial lodging. But it is, it's,
But are they
if
cabins?
you start doing that,
Yes, they are.
you start changing the value of our land too. So when I'm trying to grow a crop, and my neighbor is now putting 5 or 10 cabins on her or his property, it becomes a competition for the price of the land that I'm trying to farm too. And that's what makes it really hard for us. Then that's why we have, the people of various people have stood up and said, we fought this and we fought that. It's because we're trying to protect agriculture. It's not that we don't want people in the down county to come visit. We love that, and we're happy with bikers out here. And as Ellen pointed out, the Maryland, the new agritourism law suggests that people camp and maybe bring campers. And that's a possibility that I think we might consider, that people are able to camp and bring campers. But to start building structures here for overnight housing, for commercial housing, or commercial lodging, thank you, just makes it not an agricultural area anymore. And to say you loved visiting Napa Valley, I love visiting Napa Valley too, but that is not agricultural, that's Disneyland for wine, it's different from what we have here in the Ag Reserve.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. I was president of Sugarloaf for 8 years, and during that 8 years, we fought back the ZTAs that looked like yours twice. And the thing that you should understand is that the lawyers at the time told us that once you change the ZTA to allow overnight stays, what you're going to see is a whole ton of applications from the high-end Hiltons and Marriotts who do executive retreats. They're not big hotels, they're 20, 25-room hotels, and they like the idea of being in the country. And once that happens, once you change the zoning, their lawyers, high-end lawyers, will come in and say, wait a minute, you changed overnight lodging, so how can you deny us? And it's just opening the barn door, and I don't think you'll be able to stop it. I think their lawyers will win. The second thing on traffic, real quickly, we're in Barnesville. We have to hire overnight off-duty cops from Montgomery County to control our speeding. It's so bad. We give over 94 tickets a month in Barnesville, and that doesn't include our speed cameras.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is. Whoa, girl. I'm all right.
Is that a new dance move?
Yeah,
No, it's not tripping over the wire.
That's what you hold it up.
So I try to envision what a family might do on weekend, thinking they would come from wherever, Friday evening, maybe we take them out to Seneca Polo, they watch the polo grounds, and there's, maybe there's a way to get food there. Saturday morning, they take a riding lesson and they go on a trail ride, and in the afternoon we do something else, go down to the river. Sunday morning, they have breakfast with the family and then they go back. That's my envision of what would happen. And they could do that if they stayed in a tent, or they stayed in an RV, or they stayed in a structure. I think that's the kind of expansion of agritourism that has been promoted. However, I would like to suggest, as other people have, that this needs to be done both in a regional way and a comprehensive way. that infrastructure necessary to really bring people in beyond the day trippers is needed. Better signage, better roads, better whatever, but also looking at not just the ag reserve as, you know, sort of the pop-up brigadoon that it is for a lot of people. It's like, oh, let's go to the ag reserve for the weekend, and then they go back to wherever they're going and we disappear in their minds. Is looking at it from how to use the resources of Urbana and Clarksburg and Buckystown and Darnestown to have a regional approach that takes advantage of all the things there are to do and does not necessarily say that all the agritourism, you know, has to be cited in the ag reserve, that there are towns around. I don't know if you thought about that or if that's off the table.
I think that's a great idea. I loved everything you said.
Okay.
I was just going to say that Heritage Montgomery already does all of that for all of Montgomery County, including the ag reserve.
Visit local too.
But let's go to, going to Greg Glenn over here again, sorry.
I just want to piggyback on a few things that were said. I really agree with Lauren. I think we need to reframe a starting question. Community safety is really high importance. I just want to piggyback on what Lee Langstaff said regarding food. As an alcohol establishment in the county, in the ag reserve, we have a huge responsibility and privilege to ensure the safety of not only our customers, but our staff and the community around us. So if we get past square one and reframing the question and we get into this is a possible use, on her point, is there food available? I would highly recommend and encourage a deep study of what is allowed or not allowed, whether it's alcohol or substance abuse for these uses of these spaces, because inevitably you might have the midnight munchies to go to McDonald's in Poolsville, and you guys have gone through a couple of six-packs. I think that comes in a high degree of safety concern for the community, because that's an unregulated use of that space, whereas the alcohol establishments, we have a charter to monitor that and manage that. So that'd be my critical question about alcohol and drug use in these rented spaces.
McDonald's will have to be open past 8 o'clock.
You want to address that? You want to answer? No. Okay, other
All right,
questions?
Tom Hartsock back here in the back. Tom, can you stand up and be louder?
I can yell. I'm going to make a fairly short comment. The current zoning regulations work very hard to make agritourism a part of agriculture. My problem with your ZTA is that you have made agriculture a part of agritourism.
Gentleman back here.
So, I do appreciate you coming to listen. Not
A little bit louder.
All right, I'm sorry. No one's ever really said that about me. I do appreciate you coming to listen, because not everyone does that. That's said. And whether or not, I think I understand the purpose of the ultimate, what you're trying to achieve, and we've heard some objections to that. So I'm not going to elaborate further. What I do find is a spirit of any kind of legislation or zoning doesn't always match the language that's associated. And so what I'm fearful of in the existing language, it is so wide open. And so, and I used to litigate a lot, and I could be representative of the merits of the world. Right now, agriculture, one of the definitions is processing an agricultural product. Now, I'm not a farmer. I came out here to the open space, and I love the farmers and support them. And I have easements, but I also have a big portion, 20 acres, that's not on an easement. What's to stop me from doing a very limited agricultural process? I could filter honey. I could have a small brewery. I could already brew beer. And I'm like, you know what? 10 cabins, boy. I can revenue. I can start doing that. I'm not a farmer, but this will allow me to do that. And if you ever drive down 28 or 109 and see the litter that's on the side of the road right now, wait till everybody in the county or everybody in the ag reserve that isn't a farmer, that might have a legitimate reason to have a small space for overnight, starts popping up with these cabins. It's gone. And so have you given any thought to limitations and the litigation that's going to come with due process and equal treatment to those that want to come in and buy farm and buy something and implement it?
It has to be an accessory. No worries. It has to be an accessory to farming. And again, going back to what I said before, nobody's gonna create a cabin 2, 3, or up to 10, which is what I currently put on the ZTA, if there is no market
I
for
beg
it.
to differ. I get people to come out and come on my property today for nothing. And so to get qualified, they say, a sham. When you say agriculture, that's not defined very well.
Yeah, let's let her answer the rest thing.
She's going down the
Let's
premise of the
move on.
Okay, all right, here we go. Who do we got here, sir?
I have one off-the-wall kind of question.
Lay it on us.
I live in the Ag Reserve, but I own a car dealership in Lower Montgomery County. And we have an onslaught of electric vehicles that are headed our way, and by 2035, every new automobile sold in the state of Maryland has to be electric. No gasoline. When those cars start coming to the Ag Reserve, I'm concerned about the infrastructure to charge those vehicles and what has to take place, the disruption that has to take place to put in charging stations to accommodate all these new vehicles that are going to be heading towards the Ag Reserve.
No, thank you, not off the wall, that's part of what one might say the radiating effect of promoting this use. There might be things that are needed to support it. So
Got one
that's-
over there.
Yes, sir, regardless, okay, of course.
Regardless of the ZTA, that's something that we're looking at, and we do need thousands of charging stations throughout, not just Montgomery County, but throughout the state, to do exactly what you're saying, so.
Yep.
Regardless of this.
Okay, I got a couple people queued up, hold on, sir, Ms. Lewis, did you have something?
No, but I will.
Okay, so I'm gonna play devil's
Are you gonna be loud enough?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate, okay? My farm's in preservation, both farms that we own are in preservation, so I'm knocked out. Maybe if I wanna do that, I can, okay? But, let's say someone comes out, buys a farm, they're doing it. They built the cabins fail, okay? These permanent structures fail. The whole thing goes kaput. What are we gonna do then? What's gonna happen to those cabins?
The property owners.
But if that business fails,
Yeah, the farmland is going.
if the cabins fail, okay, so if the business, if the whole
business
business
model
fails,
fails.
the whole business model fails,
There you go.
okay? Right?
Yes.
And it goes under, it happens in agriculture all the time.
Yes.
What happens to those permanent structures?
They will need to be removed.
Who's gonna remove them if that business owner goes bankrupt?
Well, if you're on the farm, it's private property, you know, it can be it's the same situation as you have in any other business that you own and you have a property and the business fails.
So a point was just made about agricultural easements and the provisions of the CTA. I don't need to put Mike Shuffle on the hook here, but here I go anyway. Mike, if the property is secured, if this CTA were to go forward, if a property is secured with an agricultural easement, is there a pathway forward for that easement secured property to take advantage of the CTA?
Maybe.
Maybe, it's not
Yeah,
guaranteed.
but hold on, a maybe isn't a no, I guess is the point people are making about those easements. A maybe is they'd go through a process to see if they could get approved, is that correct?
My non-attorney opinion would be yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I checked with the attorneys, yes, it has to go through a process and see if they get approved.
So that's.
And after that, they gotta go through DPS.
Sure.
Check the water and septic, I mean, it's not like it's approved and I'm gonna do whatever I want on my
Yeah,
property.
but
It doesn't work that way.
but it's a pathway forward even if they have easements on the property.
Go ahead.
I'm George Penn, I'm a resident of the county for 50 years, lived in the Ag Reserve for the past 7 years.
Speak up.
First question is, and it's to the very first question that was raised around what's the problem we're solving for? It's actually the opportunity, which you're bringing forward an economic development opportunity. It's very unclear what the economic benefit, both for the county as well as for the Ag Reserve would be from this. I've heard a lot of costs being raised. I haven't heard many benefits. So that's one question is, will there be an economic study on this in terms of the potential benefit? Even though I'm not necessarily a fan of it. The second, thing that I'm hearing is a lot of individual land right comments being made about this opportunity. And what you're hearing pushback on is collective responsibility for the land. And I think that's really important in any case that you make, is that we have a collective responsibility to the land that should supersede any single individual pushing for this opportunity.
And I wholeheartedly agree with you. That's why I'm here, to discuss, what type of limitations can we agree on that we should have? Because I have no intention of pushing something forward that would damage, something as beautiful as the agricultural reserve that we have in Montgomery County. That's the conversation I wanted to have here.
I'm sorry, the reason I'm pushing back is I keep hearing you saying each individual can make that decision. So I hear you saying we've collected, but in your comments earlier, you kept saying each individual landowner can make that decision.
No, and what I said at the beginning was, how small can the farm be to be allowed to do this? How big can each cabin need to be? Those are the type of things that I need, that I would have loved to hear from you to address. And that's the collective that I was talking about. And at the end of the day, one of the number one things that, there was a study done by the state of Maryland, Department of Tourism, and one of the big things why people come to the state of Maryland, not just Montgomery County, is, obviously to see the Chesapeake Bay, that's a big thing we have in Maryland, but also cyclists that come to you or to use our bikeways. People who just want to come to the countryside with a bicycle, hit different farms, hit the, get some apples during the season, when the season is up, and then spend the night and leave. It's a big, big tourism thing that we have in Montgomery County. It has to do with agritourism, and it has to do with this area. And I am the chair of economic development. Why am I doing this? I have a responsibility county-wide. This is why I'm doing this. And these conversations are difficult, but I'm here because I want to hear from you. I'm not saying this is my way or the highway. It's the totally opposite. I didn't have to come, but I came because it's the right thing to do, and I do want to hear from you. So
we have a question over here. Can you be loud or come to the mic? Try to be loud.
Get the mic. No, we're mic. You're not loud.
Well, I came late, so this may have been answered already, but I have to say I'm a little skeptical about how the 10 structures were picked. And my skepticism is that I think most farmers here are not going to have the money to be building cabins or yurts with air conditioning and heat. And the idea of Napa Valley, well, I remember Napa Valley in the 70s and the 60s, and there were small farmers. Now they're all owned by tech people and celebrities, etc. And I think that the people who are going to really benefit the way you've got it written are the wealthy people who are going to come and see an opportunity, like somebody talked about. It was hotels, small, doing little boutique stuff. But I think the same thing can happen. And that's why I think I'm really skeptical about who's sort of behind pushing this idea.
Okay, where are we going? Sir, can you be loud?
Yes, yeah. I was just gonna say, I'm new to the county.
Listen up, sir.
And I think the bottom line here is that as far as the size of the cabins, they should be 0. We need food. Produce food. And globally.
There's other things besides food, though.
Flowers.
Flowers.
Thank you. Flowers. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Back in the back here. Can you be loud or will you come forward?
Yeah, I can be loud. My name is Lisa from Korea. I've been out for about 20 years. And we have horses. So we have 10 acres. So let's say that if I actually had the time to build little yurts, I've got a bunch of horses to take care of, but a lot of farmers are really busy farming, whether you're with animals or with flowers or with wheat. So I'm a little confused exactly what the economic incentive or profit would be if I'm totally against this, first of all, but you keep mentioning economic, incentives and it's gonna be good. Who's it gonna be good for? I'm not sure what your vision is. If somebody's out biking and they wanna go drinking and they wanna go stay somewhere, then they have nothing to eat there. People have mentioned they can go to they can go down to Darnestown and eat. So what exactly would people be doing in these little places at night? And where would they eat? And what would they do? And so where would the money come from?
Yeah. Thank you for that. And it's absolutely fine, by the way, for people to opine without Natalie having to address it.
Right, as we specified before.
Yeah.
Natalie, many of us have heard that this ZTA is especially tailored to one individual, and it's a concern for us. And you say that you're an environmentalist, and yet do you know that that individual cut down acres of forest off of Shiloh Church Road? And when the inspector came from DPS, he told him he was given permission by a park ranger to do so. And it turned out that in reality, he had hired a consultant that said, yeah, cut them all down. And you know, it's one of these one-eyed Eskimo things, and you may deny it, but people have heard, and also, this same individual went from council member to council member's room to promote the ZTA, telling them that the other council members approved of it, which was not true. Okay, I've heard this from someone on the council myself.
Okay, so thank you.
Consider that a comment.
Can you get Drew Baker in? He's had his hand up a long
I'm so
time.
sorry. Come on over here.
Okay, I just wanted to quickly offer some thoughts. Thanks for having me. Yeah. Sorry, I'm a little bit short of breath. I'm getting treatments and my oxygen is quite low. But first, I just wanted to acknowledge that I understand the concerns collectively of the ag community. I'm a part of it. But I also want to offer the thought that with some modifications that I think that this ZTA has some promise. My sisters and I bought 117 acres in Clarksburg off Burkeville Road in 2016 with the help of a state-sponsored new farmer loan. We lived there, my wife and I, with our 3 kids, and we've been farming ever since. Today, we have 50,000 grapevines. We have 30 pigs in the woods. We grow heritage wheat. We've got 400 logs that are inoculated with log-grown mushrooms. We have a 24 hive apiary. We are a diversified farm. And I think one of the challenges for small diversified farms is generating revenue. So diversification being the key there. Sometimes just growing more mushrooms doesn't necessarily answer the question. And the reason that I'm here tonight is not an opportunistic because this bill came up and I saw it and I was like, oh wow, that's interesting, let me form my own opinion about it. In 2018, I went back and looked at my notes and I first circulated a vision for an immersive farm experience. I sent it to all the county council members at the time, most of them are gone. I sent it to the farming community stakeholders like Bob Sissel, Bob's still here, and many others. I proposed,
Take your time, Drew. Take your time, buddy.
yeah, thank you. My oxygen, I'm jealous of most 95-year-olds with my oxygen. No, I'm okay. No, I'm okay. I propose that the 45 acres on our 117-acre farm that are in full forest and will be forever if I have anything to do with it, would be a perfect place for 10 A-frame cabins. I proposed 10 back in 2018. I don't know if that's where 10 came from, if anybody asked, but like, that literally is in the pitch deck that I submitted to the council and basically said, here's my idea, what do you guys think, yes or no? And I said, in my proposal, no farmland would be disturbed by this proposal. It would be, we would embrace the oldest camping rule, leave nothing but your footprints. I've hiked large sections of the Appalachian Trail in addition to be a farmer. I am an outdoor enthusiast and a camper myself. And the cabins would be built in the woods without any deforestation like they grew there. That was part of my vision that I originally pitched. And I said, somebody asked, like, what would this look like? What would people do? Imagine experiencing cycles of agriculture through immersion. Wake up with the sun, make a pot of coffee over the fire, feed the animals, tend the gardens, take a stroll through the vineyard, eat and drink from the land, sleep from under the stars. These are things that farmers are intimately familiar with. You go down county, and I'm part of the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and I've got a little brother who looks up to me, and he has no idea where food comes from. He thinks it's the grocery store. So this really is, I think, an important thing to consider as a farming community, not for ourselves, but in addition to feeding people, what other things do we offer the world, basically? Agritourism is growing everywhere. Nobody wants it to, but it is. People that aren't in the farming community want to connect to the natural ways of life that we live every single day with dirt under our fingernails. And traditional farming revenue is scarce. I also want everyone to audit themselves and ask, is your farm actually feeding you? Does the money that comes off of your open space, is that the only money that you live off of? Because for some of us, the answer to that is yes. And young farmers do need additional sources of on-farm income. And I'll close with this. One day, I believe we'll welcome visitors from around the country to MoCo for world-class wine, produce, pork, etc. And I hope that we can offer those visitors on my farm an intimate, small-scale, on-farm stay that doesn't disturb any tillable land, rather than sending guests to Rockville to stay at
You take your time.
yeah, thank you. To stay at a hotel next to a Topgolf that overlooks 270 and eat at Olive Garden, because that's the antithesis of what I believe in and why I exist. So sending people to Urbana and Rockville, they have nothing there for me. I don't eat that food. So to bring people to my farm from around the country and introduce them to what I do and why I have my pigs in the woods and why my pork costs what it costs, and then I send them to a place that serves God knows what at half the price at a restaurant, it's a really tough, that's just something that is the complete opposite of what I believe in. So overall, I think the ZTA definitely needs a lot of concessions, some additions. How big does the farm need to be? How small should these structures be? Because I am also concerned about these things being too big on farms that are too small in tillable land. That is an equation that we have to avoid. I think that we can collectively come up with ways to make sure that these things are small, they're in the woods, they're appropriately clumped, etc., etc. But anyway, I think that this ZTA, if properly written, could improve agritourism, improve lodging accessibility, which is a problem. Driving 30 minutes after you've been at a winery is a challenge. Reduce night driving. Someone talked about safety. Having people stay on the farm is better than what time is the winery open until 9 o'clock. Having somebody stay on the farm, I think, is safer than sending them home on back roads at 9 o'clock. And new revenue for diversified farmers, which is my selfish interest. So you ask, what is in it for the farmer? I see an opportunity as part of my diversified farm to bring people. We do tours, we do workshops. That's how we make money. And I think to be able to have somebody stay overnight on our farm as part of that experience is definitely something that can generate revenue. So that's what's in it for me. That's why I'm here selfishly. I'll just be completely transparent with you guys. So, I like it because I see opportunity as a young farmer that's trying to feed 3 kids.
Natalie, do you want to comment on that?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we have a line right here.
Yeah, I just want to stop for a second here, and you stay for a bit longer, or it's 7, it's almost 8?
8 o'clock.
Okay, so we got another 2-3 questions max. Let's keep them short for Natalie.
Can I just point out that agritourism happens like big time right here with these 2 businesses? This is Kingsbury Orchard and Lewis Orchard. I show up and you cannot park because there's so many people that are bringing boxes of apples and peaches out. We have 500 customers a day on a good day for Kingsbury. I'm just saying, we have successful agritourism right here.
Can you be loud or we?
Sure, I can be loud.
That's like it.
I wanted to know what other things will be allowed to happen on these farms to give the visitors something to do. Is this going to be only having a program that has to do with their farms and what's going on in their farms? Or, again, what about feeding them? What, are they gonna be able to be going four-wheeling on the farm? Are they gonna be able to do, music venues? I just don't, this starting is here, and I'm afraid it's gonna go like that.
And the ZTA is limited, only, the ZTA is limited just for the overnight stays. Whatever else is happening in farms, which, it's already happening in many of the other farms, like the trucks and all the activities that we have in some of the pick your own, that's already happening. But this is only for the overnight stay, that's it. That's it.
Okay,
She has been.
oh, I'm so
Yes,
sorry.
yes, yes,
You're back behind people, I didn't see
She
you.
already asked a question.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Surya. My parents farm here in Dickerson. I don't know if everyone can hear me, but.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, earlier Natalie mentioned about the younger generation. I'm just gonna say, I don't know how many here other than me are under 30. And that's not a bad thing. It's I respect the generational farming. I respect the culture that you come from. It's very important. But it's also, to what Drew was saying, it's also important to realize that like a lot of us that want to make farming a part of our lives, make stewardship of the land a part of our lives, cannot do that as a full-time job. I can't afford the property here. Some of the people that are moving here and saying they don't want any sort of new business being done because it's an agricultural reserve, they don't do any agriculture here. They could afford to buy the property and just live here on a house and just be here. But let's say that I want to start farming, I want to do diversified farming, regenerative agriculture. Unless I put corn and spray pesticides and just sell that for, bulk, feed and whatever, for ethanol, whatever, I can't make a living, growing tomatoes and cucumbers and pumpkins, maybe some goats and mushrooms, whatever, right? And so it makes sense to be able to have an additional stream of income. I'm not saying build a resort. I'm saying if someone wants to come and see how we're farming, they should be able to. I should be able to make some extra income off of that. Otherwise, I have to maintain my day job as a software engineer. That's the only way I can pay it off. There's no other way to do it. And it's just, that's the way it is. You look at the property prices right now. How are young people supposed to get into farming now and be able to continue the tradition of farming and land preservation if they can't share that in a way that also makes additional income for themselves? So I just want to consider it from a perspective looking towards the future rather than just looking towards where we've come from. I did like what Lee mentioned about, considering having farm activity, requiring farm activity, requiring agricultural stewardship to then take that next step. But I don't think we should completely shut down on the idea because there's a lot to be gained from it as well.
Thank you.
Somebody right here, lady had her hand up.
One more question.
Who was over here, had a hand up?
Right there.
Who hasn't spoken?
Oh, yeah. Can you be loud?
Sure,
All right.
I'll be loud, but I'll use a mic too. I'm Elaine Hoffman and I've lived out here for 30 years and we have a farm as well where we grow hay and other things. Had a flower farm for 12 years. Let's hear it for flower farm. But I would just say to you, the younger generation person, I write about farming and study farming a good bit and have looked at all kinds of farm activities all over the country. I would say to you, I find it very hard to imagine that the only way you can make a diversified farm work is to build new overnight stay structures.
Yes. I learned something when I was in high school. A good debate or conversation is when you listen, and if you have disagreement, just keep it to yourself. You don't have to pick on somebody else's opinion to challenge them. It's not it's not healthy, it's not helpful. With that said, I look forward, I think my time is up.
Yeah.
Okay, so, it was a pleasure to be here. You can easily find if you can please, Caroline, if they probably have my contact information.
Sure.
I look forward to specific and direct feedback on the ZTA to make it stronger. To make it better for all of us. So in terms of the minimum amount of acreage for a farm, how high or how big the structures have to be, all those details. If you have thoughts about them, please send them my way before. You can share them during the public hearing on January 16 at 1:30 p.m. at the County Council, or during committee session at the end of January. But be very specific. That'll be great. And I thank you all for your time. And thank you for hosting me today.
How you doing? I'm Caroline Taylor with Montgomery Countryside Alliance. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming. I appreciate that we've had this conversation. I'm very grateful to Natalie and her staffer, Tony Abauer, for coming as well. We have someone from Marilyn Balcom's office, Craig Wilson, here. Mike Sheffel, the new Director of Office of Agriculture. We've got Dale Tibbetts from the County Executive's office. Did anyone come from Dawn Lupke's office? I didn't see, but I know she's taken an interest in the ZTA. I just wanted to recommend to those of you here, please read the ZTA carefully. There have been some comments made this evening that the state has already made provision for this and therefore we have to, and that actually isn't necessarily so. We have provisions in our county that are more restrictive. For example, pesticide based on lawn chemicals, for example. So we don't necessarily have to follow to the letter of what the state provides for. I think listening to next gen folks is important. I think we can look at the zoning code as was brought up by Ms. Brown as to where we usually deal with overnight lodging and determine whether that might be, frankly, a better place to deal with that, but that's a conversation. And again, take a close look at the ZTA, engage as the council member has asked, engage with your council members as well, and we should be thoughtful about this as we move forward, so thank you.
Another round of applause for Natalie coming out here and subjecting herself to our love.
I love this, actually.
Thank you so much for coming in. You can linger if you want, after Natalie leaves, and you can continue the conversation, either formally or informally, whatever you guys want to do. It's 8 o'clock. If you want to close it down, then